was my great uncle, but he was a farmer in mid-Ohio, and he lived alone. He was in his late 80s, and he befriended this girl who would help him around the house, take care of the yard, just do little chores for him. So and then she went to his church, and he would say, oh, call her Beth. Beth, come on over, and I'll pay you a little money to help me feed the chickens, or clean up the barn. And so she would, and they became very good friends, and he trusted her. After church, he said, well, why don't you just stop over? And she said, okay, no problem. So she stops over, knocks on the door. It's about 8 o'clock at night, and she's kind of acting funny, and he doesn't know really what to do. So he calls my grandmother, who was alive at the time, and he says, there's 3 of them. I don't know, I didn't ask her to bring friends. And my grandmother said, well, do you want me to come over? And he said, no, I'm fine. He said, I'm just gonna go to the front porch. What happened after that? But apparently the girl left and said she would be back, like all of a sudden, but he felt that he called my grandmother back and said, there's something wrong with this girl. She's not acting like herself, and he had known her now for quite a few years. Felt like there was something off about them, and he was absolutely correct. They had been using methamphetamine quite heavily, and he did not know that she had gotten involved in that drug. He had known her for so many years and trusted her. The next morning, they came over very early. Now, he was a farmer, so he got up early in the morning. And what happened was, they came in and they sat down, and he was very nervous, and he stood at the kitchen counter and he said, Beth, I think you and your friends need to go. And the 2 men stood up, and they demanded him to give him money, because he knew that he had, saved money, as she had really gone through his financials and knew that he was single, that he had quite a bit of money saved up. And I know you have more money in your bank account. She says, you're gonna give me cash. And they pull out a gun, and he's like, I'm not gonna give you any money. You're not gonna steal from me, Beth. What are you doing? And she said, we need money, give it to us. And he said no. So she goes and she grabs his checkbook. She slams the check onto the counter, and he says, write me a check for $1,000. And he says, no, I'm not gonna do that, Beth. The 2 men who were standing at this time grab his arm and put a handcuff on it and said, oh man, point the gun to his head, you're gonna write this check. And he said, I am not going to write this check. So I guess he went to she was just beside herself, looking all over for her husband, reported her husband missing. And here on August 15th, his body was found in the trunk of the car in a nearby suburban hotel in Farallon. So investigators say he was killed on August 11th, and this is in 1988. He had been shot 6 times with a .38 caliber revolver, but only 5 bullets found in his body. Now, that is very important information because this woman kept she was so upset that her husband had gone missing, and then his body was found. She's 43 years old, and this is her estranged husband, which would have made it even a little bit odd, more odd to them. And he owned the Bath Golf Club. Now, Mrs. McCartney told investigators that she didn't know what happened until horseback riding instructor. I don't know what it was about that era, that time period, but it was nuts. Not like, I mean, you think that people, every 2 days, we really couldn't trace anything. I mean, you'd start 69 back a little bit after that, but not much longer. But then my parents moved out. They moved down to Florida, so I don't know. And then Joseph Kubacek. He was Cleveland, February 12th, 2006. So he was discovered in the pavement below a parking deck in downtown Cleveland around 1 in the morning. His car was found on the top level. A trail of blood led from the car, the door to the railing. A knife lay nearby. The coroner initially ruled the man's death as suicide. So, but then it later said it was undetermined. He worked at the Steak and Shake in Brunswick with some very unsavory characters. His manager, Brian Weaver, where Joe also worked, and co-worker Brian Trimmer used to bum rides from Joe downtown. After Joe's death, Trimmer skipped town. So, if you have any tips on this case, or the Amy a couple of times, please call 216-443-6130. The number again is 216-443-6130, and that is Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department. Alright, so the murder of Lisa Pruitt, and this was in Shaker Heights. This is actually, Shaker Heights was basically where I was born, really close to it, and some good friends of ours lived there. So here's the mystery. This 16-year-old girl is stabbed to death, and she's left behind this mansion in the Tony section of the Shaker Heights. So based on tips from her classmates, she's only 16 years old. Police quickly focused on the weird kid in school, Kevin Young. So Kevin Young is charged with the murder, but acquitted by a jury because there's really no evidence. It's just he was a weird kid. I mean, that's not really a reason to charge somebody with murder. I don't agree with that. So looking at the case again raises questions about Pruitt's boyfriend, Dan Dryford. Lisa's body, after all, was found about 100 feet from the Dryford family mansion. Dan had been released that day from the psych ward. He had written her letters from the hospital, warning her to stay away from him when he got out because he didn't want to hurt her. seediest clubs. Her killer strangled her to death. She was 6 weeks pregnant. Her murder may be linked to the April 2005 death of Donna Pittinger, whose body was found floating in the Tuscaroras. So again, if you have any idea who might have hurt this young lady, Andrea Flannery's body, or 21-year-old Andrea, the number for that, and this is the Akron Police Detective Bureau, is 330-375-2490. That's 330-375-20. That's 330-375-2490. So the 22-year-old girl, Anita Pratt, and her unborn baby were killed in Ashtabula, Ohio, on September 19th, 1981. She was found stabbed to death in a pool of blood beside her 1-year-old son's crib. There was no sign of forced entry. Her stepfather, Bill Colley, who lived across the hall from her apartment, told police he found the front door open and a child crying inside. She was 7 months pregnant at the time. Police long suspected the stepfather, but he never confessed to the crime, and they had no proof that he did it. So if you have any information on that case, call 330-675-7890. That number again is 330-675-7890. And that's the Ashtabula County Detectives. So if you have any information at all, any of those 3 cases, please call the number I provided. I will also leave it in the description. I mean, this is really frustrating that all these young women are murdered. And men, there's many. Let's see, Tanya Aldridge. Disappearance. She disappeared March 29th, 1997 in Elyria, Ohio. So, the thing is, she was last seen at Chris's Place Bar at 2 a.m. 38-year-old Tanya walked east so important. When you are listening to these true crimes, it's not just for, entertainment or whatever, or relaxation. It is, but especially when it comes to missing persons. And if you need to give information, I want people to listen carefully, because even if it's 50 years, people still want to know what happened to their family. For sure. So, Beverly Jaros, Jarosz, December 28th, 1964, Garfield Heights. 16-year-old Beverly looked like young Zoe Deschanel. The Catholic schoolgirl had no shortage of suitors in Garfield Heights, and at least one stalker as well. One anonymous admirer left a bracelet on her back porch, but the attention made her suspicious, and she started carrying a sharp letter opener to school and back for protection. That's crazy. See, the fear is real. And this is 1964. Right down the street in Garfield Heights. It wasn't very far. So, a few days after Christmas, someone murdered her in her bedroom, when she was home alone. Oh my God, she was stabbed 42 times and strangled with a rope. Suspects included her boyfriend, an ex, a neighbor, a boy, a traveling salesman, but no one has ever been charged. If you know anything about this case, or can remember any weird things or people around the house at that time, call 216-475-5686. 216-475-5686. And her name was Beverly Jaros, Jarosz. So the 1987, okay, this is what I'm talking about. There, for some reason, was a point in time in Akron that it was crazy, right? I mean, that's what we've been talking about all night. Okay, in 1987, August through December of 1987, alright, 3 women were brutally murdered in similar ways. Their deaths may be a work of a serial killer that was never caught. On August 10th, 31-year-old Janice Christensen went jogging along the Hudson Bike and Hike Trail. Someone sexually assaulted her and stabbed her to death. Her body was found the next day just off the trail. On October 24th, the body of Joanne Bartholomew was discovered in the woods behind Chapel Hill Mall. The same area. Remember this. Listen to what I'm saying, because this is the same area, the same place. Okay? Chapel Hill Mall was the mall that we went to. Summit Hill Mall. The Norton, it was all kind of like right around that area. I remember these cases so clearly. So clearly. Remember I was telling you the one that was down in the valley? That was the first one. And I remember just being so terrified. So then, she had also been raped and stabbed. And she failed to return from church. The killer never found. So then there's a third victim. All about the same age, within 5 or 6 years. This is 1994. Okay, now we're moving kind of into Pennsylvania, but it's very close to Ohio. The Berlin Reservoir in 94. So this is only a few years after these, people were killed. 14-year-old Sarah Boehm left her family's house in Rochester, Pennsylvania one night, telling her brother that she was going to a friend's house. She never made it there. Her body was later discovered in the Berlin Reservoir in rural Ohio Park, less than a half a mile from where the nude body of a 17-year-old Catherine Menendez was found. Menendez was from Alliance, Ohio, and had run away before. But both girls were murdered in the summer of 94. The FBI believes that the crimes are work of a serial killer. Now it's strange that it's right in the same area. I'm like 20 minutes away from each other. This is crazy. If you have any tips on these two girls, call 216-522-1400. And that's the FBI, because this is obviously a bigger case. 216-522-1400. Thank you all for joining me tonight for five, but even though it turned into more like, a few more, but more of a missing persons, a few unsolved cases.